that I see records as evidence. Records as evidence of us, evidence of events and transactions, of determinations and decisions taken by government about citizens and people's rights, about their entitlements and the actions that have been taken, and sometimes about promises and commitments that have been made by government to the public. Another way that we often use is to talk about memory. So the evidence is kind of memory. Archives New Zealand is often referred to as the memory of government. So it's memories of us and memories of them. We often talk about that in terms of like this idea of memory as being part of your identity, the thing that determines yourself. We worry about losing our memory. But I think it's actually got another purpose as well. So instead of just being about history, historic, heritage value, it's this idea that I can take memory in terms of what I remember and evidence of what I remember, and I will sometimes need to use that to help me make good decisions and help me figure out whether the things I'm about to do or will do in the future is right or wrong. And there's this notion that memory enables a conscience. And so that does introduce this idea of the state as Big Brother. But nowadays, we're actually starting to get a bit more worried about business as Big Brother, aren't we? And it's not just about creating value through good information and bureaucracy and governance, but actually about some other really interesting ideas around data and algorithms. So one of the things that one of the key ideas was this ensuring the accountability of government when key decisions actually made by machines. So it makes me think, in terms of accountability of government, how do we hold algorithms and government to account when they start to make divine moves in terms of decisions, when they're completely inscrutable to us? I don't have the answer to that, by the way. Machine learning in a more positive sense for archives, and this is something that we've been trying to do, and this has often been seen as the holy grail, where, when I started working in this space, a lot of people said, oh yeah, we can take, printed things and we can digitize that and we can transcribe it very easily, but man, we're never going to do any of that joined up cursive writing because even humans can't read that. And yet there is now this is open source software transcribers, and we've done a few experiments and we plan to do more, which uses a combination of crowdsourcing and machine learning in order to take all that kind of joined up inscrutable writing and turn it into actual typed text. And if I take Lucy and I take something like an iPad or a mobile phone, and I take the fact that she's got different expectations of a government, of being a citizen today or a citizen in the future than we've had, then that's a hugely disruptive force. We've got this kind of like tsunami of digital content and holdings and information out there, and our archival and collection and holding institutions feel like that little Mount Fuji, I presume, Fujiyama, that's about to be swamped by the tsunami. We created a strategy, Archives 2057. That's like even further than Blade Runner 2049. Fantastic. And it's got three key themes, which I'll just touch on here. Taking archives to the people is all about meeting that digital disruption front on, about expanding our channels away from being points of presence and merely places that you have to go to. I mean, we'll still have some of those, but it's about opening up channels interactively and digitally for our customers and ensuring that our commitments to iwi and Māori are much, much better aligned with Te Tiriti and Kaupapa Māori. We also have a theme around upholding transparency, and this is really the idea that accountability and transparency comes from the moment that records are created, not after 25 years when they're transferred to us, but from the very moment that they're created in a public office or an agency. And how do we ensure that they can be accessed as soon as possible, maybe from the point of creation, if we're lucky. And then finally, this idea that in a hyper-connected world, we can't do this on our own. In the past, it wasn't that difficult to create a system where you put records in boxes and put them in cars and you truck them to us. Now, in an interconnected world, we can't do that by ourselves. We have to work with standards. We have to develop them. We have to work with public offices like the offices that many of you are from and represent, and build that system for the future, working together. 100 years, we thought, wow, that's a long time. But actually, that's not that long. I'm Chinese. We go back way further than that. So I just thought, well, what if we pushed it out a little bit further? Go from 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, 400 years. Why not just keep going? Why not? We'll get to the next round number. What's the next round number? 1,000 years. 2957. Maybe we should create a strategy around that. But this idea of a 1,000-year National Archive, because a 1,000-year National Archive needs to exist if we're going to have a 1,000 years constitution or a 1,000 years of continuous government, a 1,000-year cultural history and heritage for this nation, 1,000 years of accountability of government to its people, 1,000 years of commitments that are made to New Zealanders, and 1,000 years of an Aotearoa that unites us. I think that's a really timeless idea. I think it's time to make archives great again.